Now, would you please welcome CEO of AVIXA, Dave Labuskes.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you very much. They wouldn't tell me what my walk-on music was, so I'm good with it. I'm incredibly excited about the program we're about to deliver to you. What we want to try to do is look ahead with a crystal ball into what does the world look like in 2030. It seems like we have trouble figuring out what the world will look like at 11:30, but let's pause for a little while this morning and have an opportunity to talk to four visionaries about what they see, what they anticipate, and in many respects, what they are helping create with the rest of you in the room for the next 5 years. So before the first person that I get an opportunity to be able to introduce is Chris Schyvinck, who is the president and CEO of Shure. Chris started her career at Shure more than 30 years ago as a quality control engineer. She worked her way through the organization, and in 2016, she was appointed Shure president and CEO, becoming only the fourth such officer in the company's 100-year history. So please join me in welcoming Chris to the stage.
Think about your commute to work. You may be listening to a podcast. When you get to work, you're probably involved with hybrid meetings all day long. Then you go home and you're watching the news at night or maybe watching a sporting event. And all along that journey, Shure's innovation has been there to capture that audio that you're listening to. So we're a part of your everyday life and you may not always know it. Our knowledge and innovation allows performance to go on flawlessly. We have a lot of empathy for our end user, so we're always looking at solutions that are going to make a meeting more productive. And when we ask our customers what they want, we're not just asking, we go into their environment shoulder to shoulder. We're not asking ourselves, how do we make our product better? We're actually asking, how do we make this person's job easier?
Hi, Chris.
Hello, hello.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
Good that's great. It is good to be here, and happy 100th birthday.
Thank you very much.
You don't look a day over 90.
Thank you.
So listen, I mean, 100 years. I know we're going to spend most of today talking about the next 100 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that amount of experience, and how does that feed into the future?
You know, I've had a lot of time to reflect on that because we've been having a lot of internal and customer-facing celebrations recently. And thinking about 100 years and walking through the show yesterday, it has occurred to me that we're not successful because we're 100 years old. We're actually kind of successful in spite of being 100 years old. And that sounds kind of funny, but what I mean by that is I think about, you know, innovation is the core of why we are all here today. And the way that the company has made it to the 100-year mark is through constant innovation and, when we needed to, taking a hard left turn and changing things up altogether. And, you know, most people don't know. They think of us as the microphone company. People don't know that we started off as a catalog company in 1925. Mr. Shure wanted to sell radio parts because you couldn't buy a factory-made radio back then. And he started a catalog company. Now, selling radio parts, he could have decided he wanted to expand. He was always about growth. He could have decided to get into like home goods or clothing or something, but he had a passion around sound apparently. That's why he started with radios. And he started distributing some microphones from a different Chicago-based company within 5 years of starting the company. And he must not have liked, I can only guess, he must not have liked the quality or performance of those mics. So he took a very hard left turn before the company even turned 10 years old and decided to abandon the catalog business and start developing and making his own microphones. So a very bold move very early for somebody in his lower 30s and just starting this company. then there would just be a whole series of inflection points for the next 90 years. The company became a microphone manufacturer and became a wartime provider to the military during the war, which kind of started the fundamentals of the Shure quality standards that we all know. I actually was taking my shuttle bus back to my hotel yesterday, and somebody saw my Shure badge next to me on the bus and said, oh, I buy your products for everything I do in my rental business, and they just keep getting redeployed, they just keep working. And I was thinking about how that kind of started, back in the 40s, having that great quality legacy. Then, the company turned to phonograph cartridges in the mid-century. So how many people had a Shure phono needle? Show of hands. Yeah, see,
right.
That's there's always a lot of hands that go up. So the company became more of a household name at that point. We got a little bit more out there, more of a consumer brand. But the bad side of that story is that enter into the 80s, it fell off a cliff. Probably about the most devastating period for the company, and it was time for reinvention again. So, turned back to microphones again, but it was a very narrow swath of products that we had, so the whole portfolio had to expand. And then came the late 80s, early 90s, and people were talking about wireless microphones. And I equate those conversations to our discussions that we have about AI these days. A lot of fear, a lot of disbelief that wireless could work as well as wired, some fear, and between us and our users alike, people just didn't like that change. But look where we are today with wireless products. That change then brought about the change from digital or analog to digital. About a decade after that, the same conversation ensued. Will this be as good? Look where we are today. We're introducing a bunch of new digital products at our booth. And then looking at this market over the last 10 years or so, yes, we've always been in the conferencing and collaboration space, but more as kind of that front point, the gooseneck sitting on a podium at a university or the gooseneck in a boardroom. And now we're to the point where you can buy a complete Shure room kit, right? From the audio to the video, the compute control, and everything in between, the software and DSP that drive it. So that's just been a constant series of inflection points through the company's history and never staying the same. Constantly changing, evolving, and trying to innovate and think of new ways of doing business.
That's an amazing story. Thank you. I've never actually had the entire story told in such a fashion. As you were telling it and you were talking about Mr. Shure, I was reflecting on, half of our attendees at this show are going straight to the puppies, and a significant number of them are being deflected by the display of Shure's products that's right before you get to the puppies. And I'm like, so is it good or bad that our industry loves puppies less than microphones? I'm not sure that's a healthy place for us. Yeah. But on that display, there's a quote from Mr. Shure about the fact that you'll never achieve perfection, and you well know that, but you will never give up on.
We'll never stop striving for it, right? And it's that quote is actually put up on almost every wall of every location that we have around the world, and people cite it all the time. So if you go in and get a Shure demo today, at the end of the demo, they're going to say that quote. So we always keep striving for it.
That's fantastic. So that's how 100 years is reflected in the next 100 years, is keeping that spirit and innovation.
I think it's about maintaining the same core values, the things that we really truly believe in, and quality being one of those, and the way we do business, and being respectful and ethical in all we do. Then the rest of it changes on top of that, but the core is always there.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I could sit here and talk to you for an hour, but that would make Brad a little unhappy.
I think so, yeah.
So let's invite Brad Hintze, who is the Executive Vice President of Global Marketing for Crestron, to join us. He is representing Crestron, which is a global leader in workplace technology. He's sharing the company's vision with us about enriching lives, enhancing organizational productivity through intelligent solutions, all built on powerful platforms centered around content, collaboration, and control. He brings insight into how Crestron is shaping the future of connected environments across the enterprise and beyond. So please join me in welcoming Brad Hintze to the stage.
Our mission at Crestron is simple: enable exceptional customer experiences through technology.
Just simply describing controls and audio-video technology really doesn't help people grasp the full extent of what we do.
We take all the different pieces of hardware that you have in your business or your house, and we bring all of that together into one solution.
Whether that's in your home, making it easier to just live through simple automation, or in businesses empowering employees to do more.
Crestron makes the best technology to enable people to share information and entertainment, to connect and collaborate, whether they're in person or remote, and to make any space super simple and easy to use.
Systems and solutions that people can rely on. That's our advantage. That's our difference. That's what it means to be true blue.
Mr. Hintze, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Dave.
It's a very serious panel I have. He threatened to do a chest bump, any other kind of thing as he entered the stage.
Had to keep you on your toes.
I appreciate it. You have had a habit of doing that over the years we've known each other.
Just a couple times.
So, talk to me. This is I'm doing the David Letterman thing, by the way. If you can see that, I'm going to bring everybody out a little bit, and then we're going to just let loose. But I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you and talking about Crestron and how does the company define collaboration? I mean, let's get some of these definitions in place before we explore tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that we as an industry are at such an interesting and exciting inflection point in terms of people's relationship with technology and the way they use it. And in our mind, what we're focused on is how do we enable organizations of all type, to drive a culture of collaboration and trust. And we believe that they can achieve that through the proper investment of the right kinds of infrastructure to enable really simple sharing of information within content, to enable people to collaborate, whether they're in the room or they're remote. And of course, like I said, make the space super simple and easy to use, so that anyone can come in, they will know it's working for them. So simple, it's just that Monday morning level experience without needing to worry about it. And we as an industry can bring all of these things together and deliver on those experiences today. We have to, and we can.
So, but expectations keep going up, right? And you're working with all kinds of diverse customers and users. How do you do that? How do you draw that all together?
Well, I think I'm sure we've all felt this recently, that we're in this position where we don't need to convince business leaders, those non-technical business leaders, that they need the technology. And it's a really exciting moment where they're actually coming to all of us and saying, this is what I want to achieve. This happened, we've covered this a lot with the New York Giants as an example. Joe Shane, the general manager at the Giants, had a process for how he viewed the draft process for him, right? But he wanted it to be entirely digital. He didn't have any technology background, but he knew what he wanted to accomplish, and he came and described that to the integrator partner that we worked with and to Crestron, and we helped bring that to life. And so I think that this moment where people have those expectations and they know that they can trust on technology is a great moment for us to get there. But what we need to do as an industry is we need to move past conversations about ports and protocols and focus on that experience, really understanding and extracting for them, what are you trying to achieve? And then we can bring our experience and our expertise to achieve that.
So to talk about that for a second, I mean, not talk about ports, not talk about bandwidth, but talk about experience and delivery of that with, is it really feasible to do that with an ecosystem? Is it a one-off? How do you do best of shelf? What do you think in that?
Well, in order to really truly deliver on that experience, you have to think in ecosystem, right? You have to think about what is the best way for me to be able to deliver this experience, because not only are these expectations higher, the needs to scale across the organization are also greater. So we have to do it at a much higher scale. It's no longer where we can come in and just do AV artistry in a single room or a handful of rooms. We have to think about delivering those experiences at scale, and you need an ecosystem partner that can help deliver on those experiences in a wide variety of rooms, meeting the exact or unique requirements of an individual room across the organization. And so that's what then pushes you to focus on what are the right technology platforms that you should invest in, right, when you think about it as AV infrastructure, and how can you bring those together? How can you layer on that cloud management and make it really easy to scale the deployment and the management of those things without needing always to have an army of people to support it?
And I guess you might have a little bias of who could possibly be a good partner in that area.
Yes, of course I do.
AVIXA, right?
Well, we as an industry, right? We as an industry have to do that, right? We need the manufacturers investing in the right technologies, but we also need the right partners that understand and develop that expertise and have those relationships with customers that then can deliver together, right? None of us alone can do that. And so that's why we as an industry have to come together to solve these challenges.
So when you say ecosystem, you're not talking necessarily only about or even about the technical ecosystem, but in reality, the ecosystem of providers of solutions to serve and create that customer's satisfaction.
That's right. You need a strong combination of all of those things.
Right.
You need great technology, right? You need technology that is a reliable, solid technology platform, continues to get better, one that you can really approach as infrastructure, but you also need to pair it with the right people and the right channel to complement that.
All right. Thanks. So now let's get somebody up here on stage that also is part of that ecosystem and gets this stuff put together and put into places and is partners with both of you. It's a privilege to introduce Eric Hutto, who's a veteran business technology leader. He joined Diversified as CEO after 2 decades of leading major transformations at companies like Unisys, Dell Technologies, Home Depot. Now he's at the helm of Diversified, $1 billion+ global leader in AV and media solutions. He brings bold perspective on how AV innovation will shape the way we work, communicate, and experience the world that's around us in 2030. So let's welcome Eric to the stage.
I think the way I want Diversified to always be thinking about technology to create things that haven't been done before. We handle hard, big, complex things, but technology is always evolving. We have the media side of business that complements our workplace, and they're actually merging. So it's no longer about a room, it's about an event space, an intelligence space. We can create an entertainment value in a space. We want to be bold, we want to be edgy. Boundaryless thinking, that's what it should do. It should inspire and unite and bring forward, a better place in the world to live.
Okay. That's right.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
I know that you have a chance to be able to overhear some of the conversation as it's happening from backstage. And where we just left off with Brad was we were talking about experience. And I know that Diversified, delivering over $1 billion worth of solutions every year, is doing that across a whole bunch of different application solution areas. Particularly, I look at some of the work you guys are doing in live event, entertainment spaces, and yet at the same time, workspace. And then we had the word experience, and I figured you probably would be able to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, I think 3 years ago when I entered the industry, coming out of IT, I just saw this unique opportunity for everything's going to kind of converge. And everything that we think about today, the thing about experience is it has to get better and better every day. People demand it, individuals demand it, well, crowds demand it. So when we think about workplace and media, I saw this great opportunity to have our media really begin to take the spaces and turn it into event spaces and provide an entertainment value. Everybody talks about mandates to go back to the office. Well, that's not a reason to go back to the office. But if you can create an entertainment value, you can create an event space that brings more than just a Teams call, right, and a conference room, I think you can get people back to collaborate. And that's usually, honestly, the two things that most executives are struggling with. They need more collaboration, or they need to attract and retain talent. And I think that's where we have to focus in the workplace, is it has to solve one of those two outcomes.
Yeah, so here's the, what does that really mean from a business model? Like for us, for the people in this room. Like we're talking about ecosystem, we're talking about shifting from product-centric to experience-centric. Like what does that mean in reality? P&L, balance sheet, compensation, structure, all of that. And how are you dealing with that?
Look, everybody's company has a different model, maybe a different objective. So I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. I think what we have to think about is, what is that company trying to achieve? For Diversified, most of our people, our talent, are out on a job site, right? We're in the field all the time. That's where we live. That's where we talk to our clients. That's where we understand what their problems are. So we don't need a lot of office space. But when we do have it, we want to design it such that it's more productive. It's frictionless. It's got this experience value that people want to come together. We recently moved our headquarters from New Jersey to Dallas, and we basically redesigned a new headquarters. It's not in a warehouse. It's in an office building. We have curved video walls. Most of our people watch cricket in the morning. They watch golf in the afternoon. We actually get to use all the technology that we actually use with our clients. But I didn't mandate back to office, and we're already having to move up 2 floors and expand by 3 times because that many people want to come in. We took all of the great products that Brad Cresson has and all of our manufacturers, and we brought them into the environment. And then we learn about them better. We use them. Some don't deliver the experience we're going to want. I think if you look over the next 5 years, the place isn't a place. It's just a platform. And that platform that we all collectively design allows people to come together, to learn, to create, and accelerate their businesses.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's do this. Let's get Jason up here, and then we'll have an opportunity to really start diving into broader conversation about 2030, where we're going with that, how that workplace plays out. So the last person we're going to introduce and bring out is Jason Antinori. Jason he serves as the program lead, senior solution architect for the TELUS Intelligent Building Center of Excellence. And as he's there, he plays a pivotal role in shaping the future of smart building infrastructure. So we've got Jason coming on board to sit with us and talk with us and be a part of the conversation as somebody that is actually buying all this stuff and paying for all of these services and needs the help that you guys can deliver. So let's all welcome Jason to our stage.
Let's make sure healthcare is right there for us all. Health and well-being with just a call. Let's make producing food more sustainable, so feeding our growing world is attainable. Let's make our communities safer, smarter, and stronger. Let's make our home last longer. Let's make our technology work for good. Let's make the future friendly.
Hello, hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
It's been so long, Jason.
Yes, exactly.
Good to see you. So you're hearing all of this conversation, and you're one of the people that we keep talking about as though you aren't listening in.
Yeah, it's a lot for me, just ditto, I guess. It's great to hear everything from the back there so far.
That's great. That's great. Before we dive too much further into it, I'm curious. We have this idea of what people want and of how we're going to have to work as an industry and among each other and as partners to deliver it. Do you think the same people are going to be making decisions in 2030 that are making them today? The same types of people, the same roles?
I think to an extent they will, but I think they're going to have a lot more data and a lot more analytics to make those decisions with, so they'll be more intelligent, more insightful, and more meaningful.
Awesome. What do you think? What do you think are the most important things to care about?
Yeah, not to belabor a point, but the experience in the office, like for us, is important. I think understanding that the workplace is also beyond what the office is. I mean, we are currently in somebody's workplace, and this is an experience that you all are having. You all took the time to come here and be a part of, and those are all the important, that's the important emphasis for us in terms of how we develop spaces and understand how spaces are used. And
what kind of, I mean, in case people don't know, I mean, talk about the spaces you're working with. I mean, how much, what is TELUS's portfolio?
TELUS is I like to think of us as a multinational, sort of multi-billion-dollar startup. We're quite innovative. We're allowed to push the edge. I'm responsible for several 100,000 square feet of office space in our admin buildings, our network and mission-critical facilities, as well as a new huge portfolio of residential developments that we're doing. So we focus on deploying smart space technology, focused on data collection, and then subsequently analyzing that data, as well as standardizing on user experience where it's required, and pushing the envelope where we can as well to provide those unique experiences that can only be had in the office.
All right. Okay. Well, let's shift to 2030 with about 30 minutes to go, and sort of try to dive into this. And the way we talked about this as we were getting ready for this panel together is sort of try to build up. First with talking about the workplace, then we're going to talk about the customer, and then we're going to talk about the industry overall. And that seemed like that would be a good progression. So if you all make your mind shift to it's now 2030, do we even have something like a workplace? Do we have something they call a workplace? What does that mean? And how does AV fit in that? How are we enabling that, creating it? And any of you could start. I'm not going to do the let's start with.
I wouldn't mind starting with what Jason just said, that always needing this sort of like space to collaborate. And I think you guys can argue, I guess, but 2030 probably ends up looking like a pretty hybrid environment. It gets under my skin when people talk about return to office versus work from home, as if those are two very distinct things. And people act as if in like 2020 we were like all going to the office 40 hours a week and it was very distinct and cut and dried, when in fact we were already on a continuum to look for better ways to have people collaborate, more flexibility in the workplace. The pandemic kind of kickstarted some of those trends and got us a little bit farther along in a strange way. So I think we've always been on a continuum. We're going to continue, getting towards that in 2030. So sometimes being in the office and that need to collaborate, we can't innovate unless we have people together brainstorming and collaborating. So that is absolutely essential. And I see us on this continuum through 2030. But maybe you guys see something more dramatic.
I think that you're right. We can't predict precisely what it will look like in 5, 6 years in 2030. What we know, though, to be true, this has been true for a long time and it will continue to be true, people need to share information, they need to be able to collaborate, whether they're together or whether they're remote, and they need those spaces to work really easily and simply. I think that new tools are coming together to help us do that better, more efficiently, but I think that we will continue to see organizations that are optimizing around yes, we're getting efficiency, but how do we make people more effective, right? That when they are collaborating, that they can do it really well. And so these will be major drivers for customers. And so if we as an industry focus on delivering on those needs, as there's iteration and change and evolution for what those specifics might look like, we're there to help them, as long as we focus on, can they share information easily, can they collaborate easily, and can they use those spaces? And so I think that it is a really exciting time for us to really hone our craft around making people more effective.
Yeah, but let's dive into that. So what does hone our craft mean? Like how do I create a competitive advantage for my firm? Like,
go ahead, Eric.
No, you were on a roll. Look, I still come back to, I think we got to turn loose of the space as physical. It's a blend. It's physical, virtual. And the platform is what makes all that real and connects. What gives me a competitive advantage is always going to be the talent I can attract. Look, we can have all the AI we want, and that's a big buzzword. And yes, it's here, it's real, and
I've been told we must talk about it, or
I know.
we would be escorted off in handcuffs.
Or it wouldn't be InfoComm 2025 without AI. But you think about the platform, though, I've got to get talent from anywhere I can get it that's the best talent to solve the problem. And when I think about that, if I mandate everything back to a location, if that's what we really think we need to do, then I'm limited to the talent in the location and around that area. I, today, can get talent from all over the world, and we do. Now, I need a platform that allows them to be as if they're in the same room physically in a virtual world. And I think that's where our video technology is going. I think our visualization technology are going to advance very quickly. The audio, and all just the VR, AR, all this stuff that's now about to emerge to become more mainstream as we build out our infrastructure. I think that's what it looks like. So I don't know that it's buildings. We're going to have buildings. I don't know, how those spaces are designed. I know that if it doesn't meet the creativity, the productivity, and get to the really the acceleration of solutions that the business world needs, that the people need, I think it won't be a space that will be effective.
All right, but so Chris, Brad, like how is that impacting your roadmap, your product development?
I think, a lot of times I think of it in terms of technology pull versus technology push. The pull is when, you have customers using your solutions and they're asking for this enhancement, that enhancement, and you have to do that all day long. But you can't just be an order taker. So we need to be thinking about the technologies that we're all developing in a more transferable way. And I think we like to get really close to our end users and experience what their world is like, and maybe not just assume that the way they do things today and the steps they take, they're kind of lost in the trees a little bit there, in the details. We can kind of step back with the technologies that we know that we have and say, I think we can take like 17 out of 30 steps out of this thing, and maybe there's a better way to do this. So in some cases, more now than ever, I think we need to be focusing a little bit more on the technology push side of things, and getting some new solutions in people's hands that give them a new workflow, essentially, not just improving the current workflow that they use. So that's a big focus that we have right now.
Push.
Yeah. For us, we focus a lot on investing in technology platforms in key areas because we know, look, our customers view our technology as an investment in infrastructure. And so they're making those long-term investments. We can make long-term investments in these technology platforms as well. Anyone can build a black box, right? An individual singular black box. But when we make long-term, multi-year, and even over a decade's worth of engineering investment in particular platforms, for us, that looks like AV over IP. That's certainly Control, which is a multi-decade investment. It is in collaboration with our investments around our video conferencing solutions, but also intelligent video. And we know that those platforms will be needed, and we also know that we can deliver value to our customers when they install it if we continue to make it better. And so for us, we drive our roadmap around that. And what that means is that over time, you start with a platform today, it will get better with each subsequent release, and then we'll add to it, right? We have added to our NVX portfolio over time. Even this week, we're releasing some new products within our NVX portfolio for AV over IP. We're doing the same thing with our Flex video conferencing. We're doing the same with intelligent video. So for us, we think about the roadmap as these platforms that we invest in, making sure that they work together, but also ensuring that we're delivering value to customers over a longer period of time.
So it's iterative.
It is iterative, and it has to be, right? I think if you look at all of the transformational moments that we've all lived through, whether it be the internet, whether it be mobile, going even further back, just back to the PC, it didn't come on the scene immediately. You see this new world. It is an iterative move towards this greater value, right? You used to talk about the cloud all the time, right? And that used to be the headline. Now we've replaced it with AI. But we are getting value from the cloud today in new ways. It's just that's not the headline. The value that is created by the cloud is. And so we'll continue to focus on delivering value by leveraging all of these technologies.
You buy that, Jason?
Yes, but I think it also, there's a higher, even a higher priority now still put on that experience in the workplace and what's going to motivate and drive people to come in. I mean, we joked about it. Toronto's notoriously bad for traffic, and that's a common theme for people to come in the office. Oh, the commute is just horrible. Yet I've seen 30,000 people sit for 2 hours in a traffic jam to go watch Taylor Swift. So they will move for an experience. They will move for something. Someone once said, I mean, they will dance, meaning that if you give them something that will motivate them, they will be motivated. And so having systems that work, having systems that are consistent. We have lots of traveling members of our teams, knowing that they can be in Calgary and have the same experience as they can have in Toronto or Montreal is important to us, and we put high priority on that. And how the sausage is made for us is where the art and science kind of come in for the integrators and the manufacturers, but we put extremely high standards on what that end user experience ultimately is and how it's going to stay running.
So is it the customer now that's in 2030 that we are talking to, the prospect, the decision maker or decision makers? How does that look different than it does in 2025?
So,
anybody riff?
Well,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, look, I think down the road, they're going to pay for the results. They're not going to pay for the project. People spend a lot of money, and this goes way back even to IT. For 20, 30 years, people have bought stuff, and it goes on shelves, most of it unused. Some of the functionality is never even deployed, right, in ERP systems. And I think people are past that. They just need the result. They just want the outcome they need, and I think that's how we'll be engaged. Are you willing to sign up to the outcome? And I think that's how you'll be rewarded. If you can overachieve, I think there'll be gain sharing. That's not a new concept. It's just not moved necessarily into this industry. But in IT, it moved years ago. And so we can be more profitable collectively if we can move to that type of model, if we're confident in what we're designing. If we're confident in what we understand the experience needs to be, how people want to feel. I was talking to Patricia last night, and that's one thing she said that really stuck out to me. It's about how you feel. That's the experience. Now, we have to do our job to make people feel they want to feel. But I think our customers are going to be a lot more demanding, a lot less tolerant. And frankly, we have lots of promises that every industry makes about what they're going to do for their, we want things to be easy. That's what I hear from all my clients. Just make it easy. When I come in the room, I don't even want to touch anything. I just want it to know it's me. And it automatically configures, it brings up the agenda, it pulls documents that I'm going to be talking about. Everything's kind of working, but we're still not there. We still come in, and if you have to go from Teams to Zoom, oh, good Lord, that meeting's 10 minutes delayed because we're getting everybody reset for that. We have a lot to do, but I think that's what our customers are going to demand. If we can't get that result, I don't think they pay for it. No. I don't think they give us the full value.
Yep, that's right. And we can have a strategic seat at the table within an organization, right? We don't just enable a collaboration, we enable that culture as long as we show up to go and do that. So individual voices within an organization may be the culture carriers and demanding that level of performance. And so they may be slightly different, but what they're looking for, I think, won't change from today. We just need to make sure that we're focused on delivering that.
And learning to listen and empathize a little bit more, because maybe we have some, kind of traditional legacy ways of working, but the clients we're trying to serve. And I do think when you ask like who the customers in 2030 are going to be, I think it's even much broader than it is today. And it's already been broadened over the last 5 to 10 years. And it's a different, people might want to consume things from us in a different way. They might want to, pay for things in a different way. And so it's not just our solutions, it's even the ways in which we do business with them that we need to be very open about changing and empathizing with in terms of, how can we serve them better?
So then you're getting into like muscle memory stuff, right? So we've got a sales force out there that's been selling XYZ in a fashion of ABC, and you're saying they need to be empathetic and listen. How are you going to teach that?
Being out there in the field and understanding what people are trying to get done. It's like I described earlier in terms of understanding what the job is that somebody is trying to get done, and not really trying to hold on too much to what all the current steps are, but is there a better way to do that? Knowing what we can possibly bring to that table. So it's just you know, it's having that patience to go out and understand what that client is trying to get done.
And I think the customer is going to continue to become more sophisticated and more savvy internally to what they need and what they want and how that can be done. I've noticed a trend where organizations of a certain size are bringing AV teams in, designers and project managers, and that's not at the behest of the integrator, it's to work along with an integrator. But one of the AV IT convergence, and for those of you that have been around long enough, that was like the big doom word 10 years ago, or the phrase, and one thing I think that's come out of that I've seen is the understanding of what isn't the convergence piece. Like putting a network port on a piece of hardware, sure, that's like a practical sort of piece, but teams understanding that, no, we need experts in AV. I'm fortunate to be one of those for my organization. My apologies to any integrators that I work with, because you know how hard I am trying to get results, but that's because we have a high expectation. A high expectation is put on me. We put that on our vendors and integrators and ultimately the technology providers.
I think to that point, you live that, right? You're representing your organization as an advocate directly. I think we're also in an exciting and interesting position where we are organizations also, and we can, using the software term, I hate this actually, but eat our own dog food in a way, right? We get to live that. We get to experience firsthand that kind of empathy. We have solutions today that we've shown at InfoComm in the last several years that were a direct byproduct of solving an internal need around our collaboration and our own meetings. And I think that we need to just further our muscle around understanding that empathy, but more to the point, just like Eric said, investing in our workspaces, precisely the way that we pitch to our customers and live it and walk that. And that, I think, will really further our ability to be empathetic with our customers, but more importantly, inspire them too with what we can enable them, right? And I think that's a critical element. You need that empathy that then you can leverage into inspiring those customers, how precisely we'll deliver on that experience and what we can enable them to do.
Do you have anything, Eric? It seemed like you were going to.
No, I was just thinking about your question about muscle memory, because every industry has its muscle memory. And yes, we do need to change how we engage with our clients. And I think over the last 3 years of Diversified, we put a big emphasis on this. We couldn't take orders anymore. Orders are transactions. And if you only want to take the order and I'm not bringing the value, you deal with me on price. And that's just how it goes. Yep. So we stood up an advisory team. We brought in people from the industry who came to work for us, who've sat in the chair of our client and dealt with those issues. So they have much more respect when they're sitting across the table with somebody who had to live their life. And then you change comp plans because people are motivated by how they're rewarded. What we were able to prove out is that when you advise the client, when you see the bigger picture, when you ask 5 more questions, listening, you actually begin to understand the bigger picture outcome they're having. And then what happened? Our projects got bigger, scopes got bigger. We were dealt with more on the relationship, not the price, and we brought the value because we designed to an outcome. And over time, over the last couple of years, what our sales force has been able to see is the people who do that well, they're making exponentially more because we're paid on gross margin. Every dollar of gross margin is not equal. So I think a little bit of it is how we motivate them, how we reward them, and how we show them that this model can work, and those that buy in do better. Those who don't, well, they don't do as well. I praise our team because in just a very short period of time, we have moved to advisory consultative selling, and it's proven to be more valuable to our clients. We're solving real business problems. I tell them every day, if you're selling, you're losing. If you're solving, you're winning. And that's how we have to think about it.
So it sounds like we're not going to be bored, at least in 2030. We've got more sophisticated customers with wanting a more elegant experience provided in a more simple fashion, with us having to help them figure out how to do it. Are we still in a good place? Did we make career choices?
Yes. Go ahead, Chris.
I think it's well said that there's some security in what we do, as long as we're, as I said at the outset here, willing to adapt and figure out how to do things in a new and different way, and not just hold on to what you've been doing for the last 100 years. You cannot any longer in this world that we live in hold on to that kind of thinking anymore. So be adaptive and flexible and listen.
So some people will, some people won't, right?
I think the people can, and it's been said, the people can learn, unlearn, and relearn will be successful. And that's simply all we need to be doing. We have to be willing to unlearn the things that no longer are applicable and learn things that are applicable. And I think AI is one of those things. If we can just unlearn how we used to think about AI and relearn how we like to complement AI, I think we move forward.
Right. Well, I think that you said the word career. We have to, as an industry, we have to think about this as a career. The reality is there is durable demand among customers for what we do, right? There will be more need for what we deliver tomorrow than there is today. We know that will be true. But we as an industry, you need to think about developing your career, which requires these muscles of adapting and evolving over time. That means don't just approach a manufacturer and say, oh, I want to be trained on this box. Look for a manufacturer that helps you actually have a real career path, one that you can build a long-term career in delivering value to you personally and for the organizations that you may work with over a longer period of time. And we need, we take that responsibility very seriously at Crestron. We invest heavily in developing and supporting career path for people in this industry. And we as an industry need to think about our skill sets as a real, genuine, long-term career and continue to evolve and drive that.
I think there's opportunities for the industry too to think about how we come together a bit and create standards. Yeah. If we're going to accelerate interoperability, we're going to have to lay down some of our competitiveness, manufacturers, and think about how we design APIs, how we think about how this stuff kind of fits together, because we need all of it. And sometimes this component with this component, we orchestrate it to the outcome. And I don't think of our company as an integrator anymore. It's something we do. We're more of a technology company that's designed to orchestrate all of this great stuff that we see out there every day into the right experience. And I think if we don't come together and fix some standards, we're simply going to slow ourselves down. And as we do converge with IT, they're already in standards. They already have open source. They've already done a lot of that hard work as an industry so they can go faster. And I think that could be a threat to us if they can speed past us as we're mulling through, our muscle memory.
Jason was squirming on that one.
Oh, I know. I see him.
Can we add 30 minutes that standards are brought up?
Go for it.
Because I am, to preface, I am a member of our standards, the AVIXA Standards Steering Committee. I've been a proud standards developer as part of AVIXA since 2013, and I'm a firm believer in standards. I'm an even more firm believer in performance standards, because that's what keeps the end user front and center in an elevated performance and elevated execution of the system. And had a great conversation last night with Dan from Crestron, and he very elegantly pointed out that we all have eyes and we all have ears, and we will all continue to have that. Even the robots will have eyes and ears, and they are going to want to have an experience together and in places. And standardizing on that, as I kind of mentioned a little earlier, helps for us to execute consistency across the nation and across the globe. And it can't be done otherwise.
Yeah. I think, so the standards conversation is one I love. We talk about it internally a lot too. The best thing about standards is there are plenty to choose from, right? and there are places for standards that add real value. There are also places where manufacturers can and should continue to innovate. I think performance standards are great because they set a bar and a definition, and then give manufacturers the ability to demonstrate how we deliver it and how we deliver it in a really great way. There are standards that we should all invest in, but we still have to retain that ability to deliver a really great experience. But we can do it through open ecosystems by focusing on interoperability. So standards solve some problems. They don't solve all the problems. But we have to go and have clarity around what problems are we trying to solve, and then how can we do that together?
Want to weigh in? Want to dive into that one?
I echo everything that they said. It's grueling. Listening to Jason talk about what it takes on some of his committees, it's grueling work, but you do have to listen to all affected parties. So that's part of the process, and hopefully we end up then, setting the right standards out there. It's a lot of work.
It is. Yeah. It is. Thank you for volunteering, Jason. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
An aside, I did a lot of standards work before I had this position, and I actually was a liaison volunteer for, at the time, InfoComm Standards Committee, and I took this position, but nobody knew I had taken it yet, and I resigned my position as a volunteer and couldn't explain why I was doing it. And the team was very unhappy with me just quitting and walking away until they found out I was then their new boss.
Yeah.
Was that more fun than what you're doing now?
Standards are very important, and
it's a very political answer. Very good answer, Dave.
Anybody that knows me knows I'm probably not the person you really want on your standards committee. I guess what I want to know is the ecosystem. Let's shift it from that word to supply chain or value chain, the AV industry itself. So it's been interesting over the years. I've heard manufacturers say, I don't want to be called a manufacturer anymore. I'm a solution provider. I've heard distributors say they don't want to be called distributors anymore. Integrators don't want to be called integrators. I mean, before they were integrators, they were dealers. But less than the name, more about the sort of the movement of value from creation to utilization, the industry itself. Do you see any big changes there? Is part of the industry shifting more into one part of the chain or another? Or do you feel like anything should be influenced in that direction?
Well, I think that all the things you talked about, the evolution within our industry, the players have remained the same. It's the way we describe ourselves. And that evolution has meant the evolution in the relationship with our end customers. And so I think that the players in that chain will continue to be the same, but what we do to deliver on those outcomes will evolve slightly, right? You will still have those that are building great technology and solutions. You still have those that deliver the local expertise and support to end customers, and then you have those that are buying it, right? There are people in the middle of that will help support us. But as we continue to focus on the outcomes with our customers, we will still have a place, all of us together, as long as we keep an eye on that. And yeah, the way we interact with them, what we deliver, might look slightly different, but they still rely on us, and we can deliver value to them in what they're trying to achieve.
I think about the shift of the value chain. A couple years ago, we established an innovation team because we recognized that we need to be looking 3 to 5 years down the road. That quickly led to the fact that we need to be with our partners, our manufacturer, product creators, to understand what they're thinking in terms of technology, how they're designing, so we could design together a little bit. So we started to co-innovate with some of them. And I think that's changing the value chain, because I don't have the ability to solve the problem without a lot of people in this room and other people outside this room, my IT friends. And we're all kind of have to come together. I just think it's a unique opportunity for AV to move from this thing we do to being kind of this fabric, this seamless fabric that brings it all together and creates an experience, because a server won't do that. Storage won't do that. Routers don't do that. We create things in this industry that are the experience, and they can wow you, and they can excite you, they can move you. And I think that's what our unique opportunity in the value chain is to accept the fact that we're merging, we're converging with everything else, and just become that seamless fabric that is the experience, and just play our role there. And then co-innovate together. We got to break down some barriers. We got to do some things together. We got to share our IP a bit in order to advance the industry. Otherwise, we're just going to get picked off one at a time, isolated, because we don't have enough individually to do it. But collectively, we're pretty powerful. And I think we survive some of these convergence that are going on.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think the customer is becoming a part of the conversation in a different way. I mean, because again, that sophistication is happening. Individuals are becoming understanding of what it takes to deploy these types of systems and solutions into spaces. When we meet with the integration partners and they bring in the vendors, it isn't just to sort of tag team a pitch and sell product. It's to really understand, empathize, feel like, and appreciate what the pain points are unique to that organization perhaps, but then, I mean, across also perhaps a common issue in an industry, or even across a larger subset. But taking that back and meaningfully talking to engineering teams, product roadmap teams, and seeing some results come from that in short order, and not just sort of be, oh, it's 3 months, it's 3 months. It's actually out, and you can feel heard And then that's solving problems internally now meaningfully. So, and I think having data is a big piece of allowing customers to increase that sophistication. Not having anecdotally or sort of being told the system doesn't work. I mean, that's not the times we're in anymore, and we definitely won't be there in 2030.
We can spend, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to kind of summarize I think we're all in agreement that the bridge, you know, still isn't built in a way. There's still some different languages maybe that we speak, and all along that whole value chain. So how can we all get kind of speaking the same language and understanding the fundamental needs? So I think as we leave here today, you know, the onus is on us to figure out how to continue building that bridge. So, sorry, Eric.
No, I agree. I think it's just what you're saying. It's our industry needs to take ownership of its governance, of our technology, how it's deployed, what's accessible. The ethics side of some of the things that we're about to face. AI is a big debate, but there's a whole ethical side of AI that needs to be governed. I think about how social media rolled out so fast in the world. No one thought about some of the unintended consequences that it would have, the bullying, the increase in suicide, the negative side of all of that. And the pandemic simply accelerated that negativity at times. I just think we need to be a bit more responsible as we roll out AI and learn from some of that and think about the governance, the ethics, accessibility of it, and how and where we deploy it.
So let's use that as our segue into AI. Ensure that we touch on that. We don't have a lot of time left. We talked a lot about iterative. We talked about shifting. I really like the visual of bridges. I mean, I've heard AI is just going to blow it all up, and nothing is. I mean, we're going to be selling. AI is going to be buying and selling and using, and nobody's going to have jobs anymore, or it's you know, nirvana, and that you know it's going to solve every problem that we've ever faced as a race. Thoughts?
For us, I can share the way that we talk about it internally, at least, is we're focused on not this moonshot side of AI, and certainly there are plenty of people that are pontificating around that. For us, it really is, how can you really build AI for that Monday morning meeting so it just works? We're doing it today. We're delivering on very great video experiences, but how can you leverage that to better deploy those spaces? How can you leverage that to make them far more reliable? And I think there are so many ways for us to apply this technology to those solutions, but we can't get lost in the AI label. We have to really focus on delivering the outcomes that this technology can bring for us, while embracing the reality it can change dramatically the way that people get their work done, but it does not diminish the expertise, the skills, the craft that we have developed and honed as an industry over the decades that we have been working on these technologies.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, history is a good teacher of the future in some ways, and I feel with AI, for me anyway, I always use the analogy of the internet, and we're in sort of the 98, 99 for those that were around and experienced that, and the internet, the quote unquote, had this monolithic sort of feel to it, and everyone thought the world was going to end. There was a Y2K issue even that literally thought the world was going to end, but as we've now, I mean, established and as it proliferated into our homes and into our pockets and into places that it's become a tool to enhance productivity, to connect us better, sometimes for worse, and I don't disagree. You're very polite to say, I mean, I would say social media has become a bit of a dumpster fire, but and that's where AI is going to ultimately filter and parse itself out, and I think it's not wrong to take a beat, like some, be it manufacturers, integrators, anybody, even for us at TELUS, we've tried to be as methodical as we can, but we understand that we're in the very early days and decisions, we're faced with we talked about the other day, I mean, and you kind of articulated it really well, the VHS beta decision, we do that several times a day about this topic as we continue to carve it out and what it looks like.
Yeah, but we don't have beta and VHS yet, right?
Yes.
It's all
no, exactly.
Things, right? We can't choose between one of them, right? Yeah.
But if we could somehow turn the conversation to your point, Jason, about it's not just this big monolithic, you know, kind of either scary or cool thing, right? It's not. AI can be broken down into such smaller pieces that we actually need to be talking about where do we want to be employing it versus where do we need to control it or govern it a little bit better. And it seems like it kind of burst onto the scene a couple of years ago when like the large, the language learning models were coming out, but it's really been around for much longer, and we've been able to use things to our advantage. So we need to kind of just break down the discussion a little bit instead of talking about this one big thing, because it's more than just one big thing.
And I'm going to let you have had the last word with that final statement. Okay. So thank you. Please join me in thanking all of our panelists. Really happy about the conversation. I hope you're excited about 2030. I know that all of us really, truly are. And enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it.
I love the colorful clothes.